A Brexit no deal is edging closer after the latest exit talks ended in stalemate when David Frost refused to cave to two of Michel Barnier's demands. Boris Johnson's chief negotiator David Frost said it was clear a deal would not be easy to achieve as he hit out at the EU for making it unnecessarily difficult to make progress. Mr. Frost refused to budge when the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier demanded the UK accept continuity with EU state aid and fisheries policy before any other progress can be made. Speaking after a breakfast with Mr. Barnier in Brussels this morning, he said, "We have had useful discussions this week but there has been little progress. The EU is still insisting not only that we must accept continuity with EU state aid and fisheries policy, but also that this must be agreed before any further substantive work can be done in any other area of the negotiation, including on legal texts. This makes it unnecessarily difficult to make progress. There are other significant areas which remain to be resolved and, even where there is a broad understanding between negotiators, there is a lot of detail to work through. Time is short for both sides." Mr. Barnier was equally as pessimistic about progress, saying, "I simply do not understand why we are wasting valuable time. Too often this week it felt as if we were going backwards more than forwards. More than 4 years after Britain's voted to unshackle itself from the EU, and after tortuous divorce talks, the two sides are negotiating on all aspects of their future ties, from trade to security to transport, from 2021 onwards. But differences over fishing quotas and guarantees of fair competition have so far stood in the way of a deal. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government has refused to be bound by EU state aid rules, environmental standards or labour laws, saying the essence of Brexit was to let Britain decide alone on its own regulations. It comes after the EU earlier this week mocked the UK, saying the nation desperately needs this deal, ahead of the transition period which expires at the end of this year. An EU source told politics news site, politico.eu, "If the clock is ticking, reality will start to sink in London. The UK might not always have behaved rationally in its negotiations with Brussels, but surely the pandemic and the lack of trade alternatives must lead to some reason in London." Meanwhile, The Times reported Britain had tabled a draft trade agreement with the EU during a dinner earlier this week, which has been deemed desperate by Brussels.